So let's start today's class. We don't have many more classes left. So today probably this will be the last class on complex variable analysis, and from the next class I shall start uh, telling you about differential operators, self-adjoint, adjoint, adjoint operators, self-adjoint operators, and things like that. So from the next class, we will have probably 2 or 3 classes left. So in this semester, so we shall start on those topics from the next class and see how much we can cover. But today will be the last class on complex variable analysis, and what I shall do today is show you how to use complex variable analysis to evaluate some integrals involving functions of real variables. So let's see how we can do that. So suppose you have an integral, this is visible, okay. You have an integral of this form. Okay. So this is the integral that we want to calculate. And suppose we also want to calculate sin x by 1 plus x square, the same integral. So these are called improper integrals, right? You must have encountered these integrals earlier. These are called improper integrals because the limits of integration are from minus infinity to plus infinity. So let's see how we can use complex variable analysis to evaluate such an integral. So what we shall do first, we shall consider an integral of this form. I hope you can see the board. So let us consider an integral of this form where z is a complex number. And let us consider this contour integral, this integral over a closed contour. Okay. And you can see that if I call this function, this full function as f of z, so let me call f of z to be, this is the function of the complex variable. Let me call this e to the power of iz divided by 1 plus z square. So this is the integrand in the contour integral. This is a closed contour integral, and this is your integrand. And you can see that first of all, the first step is to identify whether this is an analytic function or it is not an analytic function. How can you see that? You can see that this is not an analytic function because this function has poles, has singularities, isolated singularities, which are poles. And you can find the poles in the following way: z square plus 1 is equal to 0. So that gives us z is equal to plus minus I. So there are two simple poles, that is poles of order 1 on the imaginary line, one at plus I and one at minus I. Okay. So this is the first step. So in any evaluation of integral, of a contour integral of this form, so our first job is to evaluate a contour integral of this form, and the first step to evaluate such a contour integral is to find out the singularities of the integrand, which in this case is a function of a complex variable. So once you do that, now you can see that, so there are singularities, and therefore you know that this contour integral will be basically nothing but 2 pi I summation over residues. This is our Cauchy residue theorem. The closed contour integral of some function of a complex variable is equal to 2 pi I summation over residues. The residues evaluated at the poles of the function f. If there are no poles, that means that the function is analytic, so the residue is 0, therefore you get contour integral f of z dz is equal to 0. So now you see that this thing is equal to this, But you can write this particular thing in the following way. Now the second step, step 2. The second step that you need to perform is here to understand you want to basically evaluate this integral. So suppose this is your complex plane. So this is your Argand plane Z, and you have an integral which is on the real line from -infinity to +infinity. Right? The integral that you want to calculate is on the real line. So what you have to do, you are coming from here, you take some point -r to +r, and you close the contour in this way, where this is a semicircle of radius r. Okay? So now you can say that the contour integral, let us consider this contour. So you are coming from -r to +r, and then you are coming back like this. So this is your contour, closed contour C. And that is contour integral of fz dz over that closed contour C. I can basically write it down as -r to +r fz dz, but fz dz on the real line is what? You can write it like this. It is e to the power of ix by 1 plus dx x squared dx, because fz is e to the power of iz 1 plus z square, but on the real line z is x, therefore it is e to the power of ix 1 plus z x square dx plus the same. So only this part of the contour, the semicircular arc, this I call CR. Okay, so this is CR moving in the anti-clockwise direction, in this direction, and now you once again have e to the power of iz 1 plus z square dz. Okay, so this contour integral over the full contour C is basically -r to +r on the real line plus CR, this thing. Is this clear? Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but now you could have asked me one, but before telling you this point, but this plus this is basically this, but this is equal to 2 pi I sum over residues. Okay, but now you can ask me one question that, okay, why I'm coming from here to here, why didn't I close it on the lower half plane? I could have done this thing also. So you are coming in this direction and you are closing it in this way. You could have asked me. But the point is that if I close it on the upper half plane, see there, the function f of z has two poles, at one at plus I and the other at minus I, right? So if I close in the upper half plane, this pole at minus I is not inside the contour. Therefore, the contribution to the residue, this thing, will come only from this pole if I close in the upper half plane, because only this pole is inside the contour, inside the closed contour C, if I close in the upper half plane. But now you can ask me that why did I close it in the lower half plane? Then this pole would contribute, because this pole lies inside the contour and this falls outside the contour, and therefore this will not contribute. So what is the justification of closing it in the upper half plane? The justification is the following. You see that this is e to the power of iz. I shall prove a lemma today, which is called Jordan's lemma. But before proving it, what I shall do now is I shall use that result to evaluate this integral. Just note that z on this semicircular arc is what? Z is r e to the power of I theta, where theta runs from 0 to pi, right? So when you are on this contour CR, Z is r e to the power of I theta. And now you see e to the power of iz is what? E to the power of I, Z is r e to the power of I theta. But this thing I can write it down as I r cos theta plus I sin theta. So this term will give me e to the power of I r cos theta, and then this will give me e to the power of minus r sin theta, because I into I, that gives a minus. So you can see that e to the power of iz on this contour in the limit of r going to infinity, in this limit you have a e to the power of minus r sin theta, and therefore in this limit this tends to 0, and that is what we want. Why? Because if in the r going to infinity limit, what happens to this integral? This becomes from minus infinity to plus infinity, and this contribution goes to 0. And that is what precisely we want, because this is the integral that we want, minus infinity to plus infinity, and this integral becomes equal to this contour integral, which is nothing but 2 pi I sum over residues. So evaluation of this real integral, obviously there is a I here, but still this is an integral on the real line. Evaluation of this integral on the real line is basically now equal to just a contour integral of some function of a complex variable. So you use the Cauchy residue theorem that I proved in the previous lecture. So the whole idea was to close is the following: you have to close the contour in such a way that this contribution over the semicircular arc vanishes. If I had closed it downstairs, then it is very simple to see that on this line z is not r e to the power of I theta, but z is rather e to the power of minus I theta. And if I calculate e to the power of iz by putting this thing, then you will get a contribution e to the power of plus r sin theta. And in the limit r going to infinity, that contribution blows up. That contribution goes to infinity. And therefore, this contribution will not go to 0, rather it will go to infinity in the r infinite limit. The idea is to get this contribution to go to 0 in the limit r going to infinity. And that goes to 0 only if I close in the upper half plane. Now the thing is very simple. So this contribution is gone in the limit r going to infinity. And this integral is nothing but this integral. But this contour, the way I have closed the contour, it encloses only the pole at plus I. This pole is not inside the contour, so this pole will not give you any residue. Only this one will give you the residue, and we have to calculate the residue at this point. And what is that? Is simple, very simple to calculate. You know how to calculate residues. Let us do that. So fz bz is 2 pi I. So you have the function is e to the power of iz, and you can write this as z plus I, z minus I, limit z tending to I, because you need to calculate the residue at this point at plus I, z minus I. Okay, so z minus I cancels, and therefore this gives us 2 pi I. This is the formula for evaluating the residue at a simple pole. So this is 2 pi I e to the power of I. So you have e to the power of I into I divided by 2I. So this gives you, so this I and this I cancels, this 2 cancels. So you have pi by E. This is the E that you know, 2.7 something is the standard E that you have. Okay. So the contribution to the residue is pi by E. Therefore, this value of this contour integral is equal to pi by E. This contribution is gone, and therefore we have the following. We have integral minus infinity to plus infinity e to the power of ix 1 plus x square dx is equal to pi by E. Okay, so this is the result. But now e to the power of ix, this integral is nothing but e to the power of ix is cos x dx plus I sin x. Okay, this is cos x plus I sin x. So this is a completely, this is the real part and this is the imaginary part, because we have an I sitting in front, and then this is a real integral. So this is the imaginary part, this is the imaginary part, this full thing, and this is the real part, and you have only a real quantity sitting on the right hand side, and therefore you can see that, just equate the real and the imaginary parts, you can see that this integral is pi by E. Therefore this integral that we were trying to evaluate is nothing but pi by E, and as a byproduct you have also evaluated what is integral sin x pi 1 plus x square. There is no imaginary part over here, and therefore this integral is 0. Integral of minus infinity to plus infinity sin x by 1 plus x square dx is 0. And this integral is equal to pi by E. Is this clear? Did you follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So let us do one more example. Let us calculate one more integral. So the thing that I have told you here is called this contribution from the semicircular arc that goes to 0. This is known as the Jordan lemma. This is the Jordan lemma. The next integral that we would like to calculate is the following. Let us do this integral. This is once again integral on the real line, and it is also an improper integral. This is x square plus 4 whole cube. And remember that we had actually calculated, I solved a problem in one of my classes. I gave you a problem that evaluate the singularity, find the singularity structure of a function like this, 1 plus z square plus 4 whole cube. You remember I gave you a problem like this, and I also told you to calculate the residue at the poles. So we did a problem like this, and you can see that it is very simple. In this case, you have poles at plus minus 2i. This you can find it out by setting z square plus 4 is equals 0. This will give you this. And these poles are poles of order 3. Okay? These are poles of order 3. And you know how to calculate the residue at the poles, and you know how to calculate the residue at the poles of any order k. So you use that formula and you can calculate the residues at plus 2i and minus 2i. And once you have calculated that, it is easy to evaluate this integral. Why? Because just change this integral from this to a contour integral. just change it to this thing. So this is your contour integral, and here also you can do the same thing. You can basically write this as minus r to plus r, and that will be an integral on the real line dx x square plus 4 whole cube. So this is an integral on the real line, and then you have to close the contour, and in this case you can close it anywhere. You close it anywhere. You just check it for yourself and close it anywhere on the upper half plane or the lower half plane. It doesn't matter. Only thing is that when you close it on the upper half plane, only plus 2i will contribute, because minus 2i does not fall inside the contour. And if you close it in the lower half plane, then only minus 2i will contribute. The pole at minus 2i will contribute to the residue. Plus 2i will not contribute because it falls outside the contour. So if I close it there, then, and I call this as CR. So CR is once again this arc. Then you can show that this contribution goes to 0. The limit r going to infinity. This contribution is gone. So you will not have this contribution. So that means that in the limit r tending to infinity, this contribution is gone. Therefore, this becomes minus infinity to plus infinity, and that is the integral that we want to calculate. And that integral is nothing but this contour integral, and therefore this is basically 2 pi I, the residue of the function f at 2i. And if you remember, we had also calculated the residue of the function at the pole 2i. Since this is a pole of order 3, so you just apply the formula for evaluating the residue, and the answer that you will get in this case is 3 pi by 256. So please check this result. Please check it yourself. So therefore, this thing is basically 3 pi by 2 pi 256, and therefore this integral is nothing but this, and this 3 pi by 256. This contribution is gone. So what I would suggest to you is that you try to, at home, you try to solve some problems, try to evaluate some integrals using the Cauchy residue theorem. So this is why the Cauchy residue theorem is so important, and it is a very powerful theorem to evaluate integrals. Now let me prove Jordan's lemma for you, because we have been using this Jordan lemma in evaluating these integrals. So let us prove the Jordan's lemma. So the Jordan lemma basically says that if you have, suppose you are moving along the real line from minus r to plus r, and then you close it in this way, and this part of the contour is CR, and as a whole this full contour is C. Okay. So the contour C, you can write it down as minus r to plus r plus CR. So this is a pictorial way of denoting the contour. This is the full C that you have. So that is this. Okay. And it says that if CR is a semicircle with its center at origin, so this semicircle is of radius capital R, and its center is at the origin O of the complex plane, and it is a semicircular arc. Suppose it is in the upper half plane. Okay, it is in the upper half plane, and fz satisfies the function of the complex variable fz satisfies the following conditions. What are the conditions? It is analytic in the upper half plane except at a finite number of poles. So this function f of z, it has basically what it is analytic except at a finite number of poles. So basically what it says, it means is that fz, it has singularities. It has isolated singularities in the upper half plane. So this is number one. Fz has this property. And the second property is very important, that fz approaches 0, fz tends to 0 uniformly as mod z tends to infinity. Okay? For 0 less than argument of z less than 5. Okay. So this is the second condition that fz satisfies. First condition is that fz can have singularities, isolated singularities in the upper half plane, finite number of isolated singularities in the upper half plane, and fz tends to 0 uniformly as, so let me write this also, uniformly as mod z tends to infinity. So it uniformly basically means that it goes to 0 smoothly. There is no problem in the function going to 0. It goes to 0 smoothly as mod z tends to infinity. So mod z tends to infinity means what? What is z on this semicircular R? It is z is this thing. Z is equal to R e to the power of I theta, and therefore what is mod z? Mod z is R. So what is this condition saying? That mod z tends to infinity means the radius of the semicircular R tends to infinity. Okay. For argument of z less than equal to pi and greater than or equal to 0. What is argument of z? Argument of z is theta, the angle. And you know that theta in this way, if you are moving along this to this in this direction, in the positive oriented direction, then theta varies from 0 to pi. Okay. So that is argument of z. So if fz satisfies this condition, then limit r going to infinity, the contour limit r going to infinity cr. So this thing e to the power of I mz fz dz tends to 0 or is equal to 0. Write this as equal to 0, where m is a positive integer. So if m is a positive integer, then the limit r tending to infinity, the contour integral on this contour, on the contour CR, traversed in the positive orientation, e to the power of I mz f of z dz is equal to 0, provided m is a positive integer. And this is called Jordan lemma. And you see in this example, the condition satisfied by f is, f satisfies both the conditions, because f has, I close the arc for this problem in the upper half plane, and there in the upper half plane z has poles, only one simple pole at z is equal to plus I. So z has a finite number of poles, otherwise it is analytic. F of z, obviously f of z is e to the power of iz by 1 plus z square. It has a finite number of poles, otherwise it is analytic, there is no problem. And f of z, this full thing is f of z. F of z goes to 0. This integral, this condition f of z goes to 0 as mod z tends to infinity, because we have a z square sitting downstairs. Therefore, in the limit r going to infinity, this goes to 0. Why? Because e to the power of iz, as I mentioned, that e to the power of iz, if you put z is equal to r e to the power of r e to the power of I theta in place of z over here, then this thing as a whole goes to 0 in the limit r tending to infinity. Why? Because you have a factor like e to the power of, this is an exponentially decaying factor. So as a whole, f of z, which is this quantity, that goes to 0. So it satisfies the second condition, and therefore limit r tending to infinity, this integral e to the power of imz fz dz is equal to 0. Only one thing that I would like to mention. So in this case, let us call this as f of z. Okay, f of z. So you see that f of z has finite number of poles in the upper half plane. F of z is 1 by 1 plus z squared. So it has a simple pole, and that goes uniformly to 0 as mod z tends to infinity. And therefore, this integral e to the power of I mz, m is a positive integer, m is 1 in this case, e to the power of I mz f of z in the limit r tending to infinity is equal to 0, provided m is a positive integer. M in this case is 1. And therefore, you can safely apply Jordan's lemma, this contribution will be 0. Had it been e to the power of minus iz, then this contribution would not be 0. This is in the upper half plane, mind you. And therefore, you had to, if it is minus iz, you have to close it in the lower half plane in this way. And then once again, this contribution would have been 0, as I mentioned to you. So this is the statement of the Jordan lemma, and let us try to prove it now. Let us try to prove Jordan's lemma. So are you okay with the statement of the lemma? So what it says is that fz tends to 0 uniformly as mod z tends to infinity. So for mod z, in this case, when you are on the arc, is basically capital R. So what it says is that from condition 2, if R is sufficiently large, then there exists a positive integer epsilon greater than 0. It may be, it is very, you can make it as small as possible, but it is positive. If R is arbitrarily large, then then there exists a positive integer epsilon greater than 0 for all points z on CR, such that modulus of f of z is less than epsilon. That is the statement that fz goes uniformly to 0 as mod z tends to infinity. Okay, and let us now see what happens to e to the power of imz mod. This thing you can basically write it down as e to the power of I m r e to the power of I theta mod. But this is e to the power of I m r cosine theta e to the power of minus m r sine theta. Okay. The R is positive, therefore I can always take this thing out. This is because this is a real number, right? Mr sine theta, e to the power of minus mr sine theta, and therefore you have e to the power of I n r cos theta. This is once again a complex number, and you are taking the modulus of that. This is therefore 1. This is nothing but equal to 1. Therefore, this is equal to e to the power of minus mr sine theta. So, modulus of this is e to the power of minus mr sine theta. Now, let us look at this integral. Let us look at this integral. CR e to the power of I mz fz dz and take the mod of that. Let us take the modulus of that. Now this, you have a nice inequality that you can write the modulus of this integral is nothing but less than or equal to CR modulus of e to the power of I mz modulus of fz modulus of dz. So that is less than or equal to this. Okay. But z is r e to the power of I theta. Therefore, dz is I r e to the power of I theta d theta. Okay. Therefore, modulus of dz is modulus of I, that is 1. This is equal to 1, and modulus of e to the power of I theta, that is also equal to 1. So this is therefore r d theta. Okay. So this modulus of dz is r d theta. Now f of z, mod of f of z, this I can write it down as less than, because mod of f of z is less than epsilon. Therefore, this is less than epsilon, I can take it outside. R is a constant over this line because this is a circle, semicircular arc. So this is R, I can take R outside. E to the power of modulus of e to the power of I mz. What is that? This integral will be from 0 to pi d theta, and e to the power of this thing modulus is e to the power of minus m r sine theta. That's it. So this modulus of this thing is nothing but less than r epsilon this integral. Is this okay? Did you follow? Are you okay with it?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
So let me just remove these things now. So what we have obtained is that this integral mod is less than this particular thing. Now let us look at this integral 0 to pi d theta e to the power of minus m r sine theta. This you can write it down as integral 0 to pi by 2 d theta e to the power of this plus integral pi by 2 to pi d theta. Okay, so you can write it in this way. This plus this. Let us look at this integral. Let us concentrate on the second integral. Let us put phi is equal to pi minus theta. Okay. Then when theta is pi by 2, then what is phi? So this integral therefore becomes integral. When theta is pi by 2, then what is phi? Phi is pi by 2. And when theta is pi, then phi is 0. What is d theta? D theta is minus d phi. E to the power of minus m r sine theta is what? Theta is pi minus phi. Sine of pi minus phi is sine phi. We have this. You have a minus sign, so you can flip the limits. So this will be pi by 2 to 0. So you can see that this integral, the second integral, is the same as the first integral. Therefore, it just gives you 0 to pi by 2, and this contribution is, you can just add the two contributions up. This becomes twice of integral 0 to pi by 2 to this. Therefore, this integral that you have here, because this was the inequality that we derived, this becomes 2r epsilon integral 0 to pi by 2 e to the power of minus mr sin theta d theta. Okay, so that is what we have. And now you can actually calculate what this is from by using some inequalities. You can simplify this integral further by using the following result. You can use the fact that sin theta by theta is greater than or equal to sin pi by 2 by pi by 2. So you can use this result, and sin pi by 2 is 1, therefore this is nothing but 2 by pi. So sin theta by theta is greater than or equal to 2 by pi, therefore sin theta is greater than or equal to 2 by pi into theta. Okay? And therefore this implies this implies that e to the power of minus mr sin theta, which is nothing but the integrand since sin theta is greater than or equal to this, therefore e to the power of minus mr sin theta is less than or equal to e to the power of minus m r 2 by pi theta. Okay. And here obviously you remember that m is a positive integer, m is greater than 0. Therefore, what do we have? We have this thing, modulus of integral over the contours here, that is the semicircular arc, e to the power of I mz fz dz, that is less than 2r epsilon, and this integral, right? But this integral is once again less than or equal to this. Therefore, this still remains. You can just write it like this: e to the power of minus 2mr by pi theta d theta. So this modulus of this integral is basically less than this thing. But this integral you can do it exactly, right? E to the power of minus 2mr by pi theta divided by minus, you will have a minus sign, 2mr by pi. And that we have to evaluate it from 0 to pi by 2. So what we find is that 2r, this cancels, the r cancels. Therefore, we have from here, this is equal to epsilon with a minus sign in front, and then we will have pi by m to the power of minus 2m r by pi into pi by 2 minus 1, because 0 will give you 1. So this will be the result of this integral, and therefore now you can write this as pi epsilon by m 1 minus pi, and pi cancels, 2 and 2 cancels, to the power of minus mr. Okay. So what we have shown is that the modulus of this integral on the semicircular arc, this particular thing, is less than pi epsilon by m multiplied by 1 minus x e to the power of minus m r. But this is a positive quantity, therefore 1 minus x e to the power of this thing is less than 1. So you can still write this as this is less than pi epsilon by m. Just forget about this part. If you forget about this part, then this quantity is further less than a pi epsilon by m. And therefore we have shown that this modulus is less than pi epsilon by m. And epsilon you can choose arbitrarily small, as r, if r goes to infinity, epsilon goes to 0, right? So epsilon goes to 0 means this quantity is less than 0. So it basically tells us that the modulus of this quantity goes to 0. And therefore, we have proved Jordan's lemma that limit r going to infinity, this integral imz fz dz is basically tending to 0 as r goes to infinity for all points which lie on the semicircular arc CR. Provided this m is a positive integer, mind you. So the integral that I derived, that I evaluated, there m was equal to 1, which is greater than 0. So this is Jordan's lemma. So I think it is a good place to stop for today. And just remember that I would like to do one more thing in complex analysis. Maybe in the next class, or if I have time later on, I would just like to show you how to calculate functions, multi-valued integrals of functions which are multi-valued. So far we have been discussing functions which are single-valued functions, but you can have multi-valued functions also. For example, x to the power of alpha minus 1, where alpha is not an integer. Then you can evaluate such integrals using Cauchy residue theorem, and I shall show you one example there. I want to just show you one example, and after that we would like to start with this differential operators and adjoint operator, self-adjoint operator, and we shall discuss some of those things which are there in your syllabus. Actually, in your syllabus you have many more things. For example, the definition of a metric space. Then what are Banach spaces? What are Hilbert spaces? Hilbert spaces you must have encountered in quantum mechanics, right? You have seen Hilbert spaces in quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics, the mathematical foundation of quantum mechanics is based on Hilbert spaces. So you must be familiar with Hilbert space. But the things that are there in your syllabus are what are metric spaces, what are Hilbert spaces, Banach spaces, Hilbert spaces, and various properties of these spaces. And then the operators that act on such Hilbert spaces. So these things are there in your syllabus, but we shall not have much time to discuss all these things in details. What we shall do is straight away tell you what is a differential operator, and then move forward to how to define a self-adjoint operator, and what is the condition for getting, what is the domain of an operator. What do you mean by a domain of an operator? And then what is a self-adjoint operator? We shall discuss these things. So that we shall discuss in 2 or 3 classes, and that would be the end of this semester and end of this course for you. So I wish you all the best for your exams. Your exams are near now. And please, what I would suggest to you is that you please go through the material that has been discussed in the class. Try to solve some problems by taking any standard textbook, and that would be enough for you to do well in this course. So, do you have any?
So how can we get the recordings of your previous classes?
I can actually give you the recording, but I don't need your email, right? So if you just send me an email, my email, I gave you my email. My email is very straightforward. It is sunandan.gangopadhyay@gmail.com. and the both address is shunandam.gangopadhyay@bose.res.in. So you just send me an email to this email address, and then I shall try to send the recordings. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So you just send me an email, then you can share it among yourselves.
Okay, sir.
Okay, good. So let us end for today. Thank you very much.